The Bearcat Basketball Podcast is now presented by the Healthcare Management Group. Shout out to everyone at HCMG, and thank you for the support. Welcome back to another episode of the Bearcat Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Meacham, former UC basketball player from 1997 to 1999 under the legendary coach Bob Huggins, and I was fortunate enough to wear the iconic Jordan Brand unis during my time. Now you can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Alex_Meacham. Meacham is spelled M-E-A-C-H-A-M. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn, Alex Meacham. I'm on Snapchat, Big Meach 41, and I'm also on TikTok at Alex Meacham 41. Now, today is the start of season 3 of the Bearcat Basketball Podcast, and I'm so excited because being that it's season 3, we have so much in store. We've got some great new things that we're going to do for the podcast I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. But here's what you're going to hear on this episode. We're going to talk about, we did live podcast at Mio's during the regular season for Bearcat basketball. It was a tremendous experience for me. I'm going to talk a little bit about how it came about and some of the great moments at Mio's. I'm also going to talk about the future of the podcast for for season 3, episode 1 and beyond. And also a new feature that I want to start adding to the podcast. I want to start talking about Bearcat recruiting. So today we have Neil Meyer from the Front Office News coming on the podcast to talk a little bit about Bearcat recruiting. This segment is sponsored by the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Cincinnati. They have a new flexible bachelor's degree that will allow you to graduate conveniently and affordably, and you won't lose any credit or have to start over. So I'd like to bring in my producer, my guy. They call him Coach Stu, but he's officially Stu Holt, the Honorable Stu Holt. What's going on, Stu?
Very good, very good. How are you doing, Meach?
I'm doing well, man. We saw each other in Louisville this past weekend.
We did.
And what's crazy about this is, and I know you noticed this, but we've been here in Cincinnati, and the weather has just been up and down, inconsistent, terrible. We go all the way to Louisville, and we're in the gym like all day. All day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's absolutely beautiful outside.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But of course we're indoors the whole time.
Indoor the whole time. You know, just watching hoop. And it's amazing. So we were at the Grassroots Showcase put on by Ohio Basketball, and there are over 60 basketball courts laid down at the Expo Center in Louisville. It's an amazing experience.
It's amazing. And I think about, referees on every court. You have people doing the clock. That's a lot of people involved. It's crazy.
It is. And a lot of people that know I'm in the AAU world and, they have the Shining Star teams and I go to these tournaments, I don't think they fully understand what goes on at these tournaments. So I took a video of all 60 courts going on at once. I stood on a chair. I went kind of the back of the Expo Center, and I sent a video to several people, and they're like, wait, what? That is the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And Mikey Williams.
He was there.
Yes.
He was there, and the court he was on was packed, right? If you walked in to the entire place, you would be able to find what court he was on.
No question.
Everybody was there.
And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because there's a Bearcat, a former Bearcat that was kind of involved in that. I'm going to dive into that a little bit later in the podcast. But Stu, what I want to talk about is something you were involved with, and that was the podcast at Mio's. During the regular season of the Bearcat basketball games. Before games, we were there 2 hours prior to, and we always had a former player come in, and I thought it was a great experience not only for us but also for the folks that came out to Mio's.
No doubt, it was definitely a cool experience, man. Just seeing the fans in person. And then, like you said, having a former player on every single time and just the energy of the people, you know what I mean, is second to none. So it was great.
And shout out to Kelly and Rich, the owners. It was their idea. Rich had reached out to me. I didn't know Rich prior. And he reached out and, hey, I had this idea. He had this dream, kind of to do this. And I think it was a fantastic idea. Yeah. And I was all for it. And it happened. And looking back, some of the highlights, of the podcast. First of all, I want to tell you this. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like because I was like, will anybody show up?
Right.
I was always worried that I would have a former player there and there wouldn't be many people there. But every episode, it was a packed house.
It was.
Shout out to the Bearcat fans.
Yeah. It was like I said, man, it was really amazing. Just seeing everybody there. It's like every episode just kept getting better and better and better. And
it did.
It was a lot of fun for sure.
And I want to thank all the Bearcat fans that came out every single time we did the podcast. Once again, shout out to Kelly and Rich. And also big shout out to all the former players that took time out of their schedule with work, family. We had a great group of former players, not only that are here locally, but also some that drove or flew in town to be part of this podcast. It got to the point, what happened, Stu, was we were getting, former players on, and I had other former players from around the country who were reaching out, and they were like, I'm flying in. You got to get me on. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. They just loved, I'd post things on Instagram with the videos and they would listen to the podcast and absolutely loved them. We had our first guest, which I thought was a great start to it, was Keith Greger. We had Deontay Vaughn, former walk-on Zach Tobler. I'm thinking about the Bengals. Draft,
former coach Zach Taylor.
Yeah, former Bearcat coach Zach Taylor, and the draft is coming up Thursday. Yeah. I'm thinking about the draft. Corey Blunt. Corey Blunt has, by the way, he is an absolute gold mine for the Bearcat basketball program. I don't think we put him on a big enough pedestal enough. Just how accomplished and how important Corey Blunt is to the Bearcat basketball program. So it was great to have him, on the podcast and kind of tell some great stories between Michael Jordan, Kobe, Shaq. He's been around all the players I looked up to and the greats. Exactly. One that I thought people didn't believe I was going to get this guy out there, and that was Art Long. And ironically, the interview that we did with Art Long, Mio's is the exact location of where the horse punching incident went down. So it was funny because when Art walked in, he was like, you know what happened right out there? So I was like, oh man, that's wild. But he was a great sport, man. The fans were just, they didn't believe he was going to show up. No one has really seen Art in a long time. Big shout out to Donald Little. He flew in from Atlanta. I think he drove to the airport around 4 a.m. That day and came on in. And he was awesome. Yancey Gates was great. And I really love Yancey Gates because he's always been a really private person, and he's really fun to listen to. Great stories. Talked about the incident with Kenny Freeze during the Crosstown shootout. Andre Tate, one of our greats, a guy that I looked up to as a Bearcat. Big time fan favorite, Tony Bobbitt flew in from Idaho. Yes, he lives in Idaho. He was fantastic. He's probably one of the most entertaining guys that we've ever had. Yeah. Just his energy. Yeah. Huge crowd for him. A.D. Jackson. He's always AG's just always the same dude from day one. Just really, really good dude. James White. He flew in from Texas. Big draw. There was a guy who drove in from, I believe, I want to say he was from like northern Ohio, maybe near Cleveland. Can't remember exactly the area. And he drove all the way down just to see James White
Wow.
at the interview because he saw on social media that he would be there. And he came and he had a picture on his phone. His screensaver on his phone was James White. And the crazy thing is, this fan's telling me this before James had arrived for the podcast. So James gets there, and I'm like, hey, there's this guy, and he drove all the way. He's a big fan. He's got your picture on his phone. So the fan showed James White the picture. And James goes, I've never seen that picture in my life. He's like, I've never seen that picture of me. He's like, where did you get that from? And it was a really cool moment. I think that fan was really like, yeah, I got a picture you don't have. So Roger McClendon also came in, who's just one of the not only great players in Bearcat history, but one of the great people, great fathers, super accomplished businessman who lives in Louisville currently. We also did a fan appreciation podcast, which I was wanting to do earlier in the season, but with so many of the former players hitting me up just like every week, there was a new guy that wanted to come in. It was kind of hard to find a place, but then I think there was a makeup game. I don't know if it was COVID related. One of the games was canceled and moved, or if it was weather, can't remember. But we decided to do the fan appreciation podcast, and I thought that went over very well and had a lot of good people come out for that. A lot of great Bearcat fans with great stories. So Cashmere Wright also was on the podcast. He was great. Cashmere, one of the great guards. And we ended up not doing this particular podcast at Mio's because he couldn't get here in time. So we did it later at another location. That was Armin Kirkland. He had come in from Texas, and he was awesome. He was great. So a lot of
amazing.
Yeah.
Very good.
And just think, Stu, next year, or next season, I should say, we've got more in store. More good.
But you know what the coolest thing, one of the coolest things for me was something like that, like bringing people together. You know what I mean? Like the people that came to Mio's, the guests that came, the people that came, like you said, the guy drove all the way down to see who was it?
James White.
James White, because he had that picture.
Yeah.
Right? How special is that for him to be able to show, him
Absolutely.
that picture? What other way would that have happened?
No question. No question.
And so just being able to connect people, right, and bring people together, it's amazing in itself.
I think it's a great point because if you look at Wes Miller being a new coach, he's trying to engage a lot of former players, and he's trying to get these guys here and find ways to get them here. And, I think Wes Miller and his staff really enjoyed the fact that we're doing this podcast. That means former players are coming in, and a lot of them are going to the game. They're getting recognized at the game. Fans get to engage with these people, and some of these guys wouldn't have come in town otherwise. And so it was great. And then next year we've got already a list of guys that want to do the podcast and come in and experience a game. So next season it's going to be even bigger and better. One thing I would like to see is our audio numbers for the podcast are good. I'd like to see our YouTube numbers increase, and I think there were a lot of people that didn't know, like the Mio's thing. We recorded all those and put them on YouTube so you can see the guys. I thought it was important that you saw these former players. So those are all up on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Shine One Media. So make sure you check that out. And what we're going to try to do next year, Stu, is maybe have it to where it's live on YouTube. For those that may be in a different state,
right?
Because we had quite a few Bearcat fans that don't live in Cincinnati that couldn't make it down. That would have been like, it's cool if I could watch it live before the game. Before the game, yeah. And be part of my pregame experience. And that was the cool thing about the Mio's thing. It became part of many people's pregame experience. Yeah. It just, it was like, okay, I'm bringing my kids. I'm bringing my girlfriend, my wife, my friends. We're going to go get some pizza. We're going to listen to, former Bearcat players, see them, and then go to the game. And I really enjoyed that. I'm glad to be a part of people's experience, and thank you and Cruzy for. You were busy, coach at Walnut Hills High School.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the run you guys had this year. Tell the listeners.
Yeah, we made it. We made a good run. Right, we made it to the district final. Tough game there, but we had a really good team. They had a 20-game winning streak at one point, which is the second longest winning streak in Walnut history.
Wow!
And the first being the class of 2013. Which is my senior year.
I like how you.
Yeah, we went on a 23-game winning streak. So, okay. But yeah, they did their thing. I was very proud of them. They deserved it. They worked their butts off. So, really good season. Really good season.
And on that team for this season is one of the best players.
Yes.
Not only in the greater Cincinnati area, but after this past weekend, we can say he's one of the best players in the country.
Yes.
And that is?
Tyler McKinley, sophomore. And he's the best thing about him.
Yeah, so wait a minute. Talk about him because the Bearcats are hot and heavy after Tyler. Like the Bearcats were there's a picture on Twitter where I think Bearcats were there yesterday. The staff, Wes Miller, was there. So tell Bearcat fans about Tyler and not only what he can do now, but potentially what you could think if he became a Bearcat, what he would bring to the Bearcat basketball team.
Well, Tyler is like his versatility is amazing. His talent and his skill, right? You can see that when you watch him play, right? And for his size, he's 6'9". Right, he's 6'9", but he can bring the ball up on the fast break. And not only can he bring it up, he brings it up efficiently and makes the right play, right? So he's always looking to make the right play, right? Extremely unselfish. He's team first. He's extremely humble. And it's like for a player that just got named top 50 in the country, you know what I mean? You would think a lot of times guys get their ego starts, going up and they start getting prideful. He's the same, right? That's just who he is, right? And I was talking to him one day, and he was just like, I'm just doing whatever it takes to win. Whatever it takes. If I got to sit here and hand somebody some water, or, but he's like, I will do whatever it takes to win the game. As long as we win. And so for a player like that, of that caliber, he can hit the three, he can hit the mid-range fadeaways, dunking at the rim, Euro steps, and he's a sophomore and he's 6'9".
So one thing I want to add to that is there are guys 6'9" out there that are doing some of those things, but I think the difference with Tyler is he is a strong 6'9". Like he is built.
Yeah.
He's not a long, skinny Kevin Durant.
Right. And he's still building into his frame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's only going to get stronger, right? He's only going to get more explosive. Like his potential, like it's just no ceiling for him, and that's the best thing about him, and his work ethic, right? It's just amazing, right? The coaches, right? You said the Bearcat coaches were there for the breakfast club type workouts that he does, which is before school, early in the morning, right? So that just goes to show you his dedication and his work ethic.
And you really sold me on Tyler. I'd watched him several times in the past, and I asked you because you're kind of there every day in the trenches. You see him, you've watched him grow, and I watched him play in AU. I've known Tyler for a long time. Obviously, his brother Alex, who is very influential in his life and really Alex is a great person. I think
for sure.
You can say Tyler carries himself the way he does in a lot of ways because of Alex's mentorship.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
But you really sold me on him. Like, look, he here's what he can do. Here's what he needs to work on. And you told me, like, he's going to be really good. And that made me start watching him more. And I started to see him develop and get better. And even after watching him, this high school season, I think I don't know if it was a Fairfield game, one of the games I watched him and I said, he's going to be a pro.
Yeah.
Like he will be a pro.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I got to find it real quick, but so it might be going, but the what he had this year, I mean, like player of the year, the conference, player of the year in the district, all these different things, and it's like, man, he's a sophomore. Like
crazy.
You know, these awards that he's getting. It's not just for his class. Like it's everybody.
Everybody,
so
seniors included.
Yeah. You know, so as an underclassman, for him to achieve the things he's already has, and like I said, with his work ethic, you know. From the beginning. Well,
what I need you to do is I need you to make sure that you push him to the Red and Black, to Clifton, to the University of Cincinnati. No, I'm just kidding. No pressure on you. Actually, we're getting ready to interview him on Thursday for a high school interview series called What's in Your Bag? We're getting ready to interview Tyler.
That's going to be a good one.
It is going to be a very good. I'm excited for that. I think Bearcat fans are going to want to watch that one.
Yeah.
The Bearcat Basketball Podcast is now presented by the Healthcare Management Group. Shout out to everyone at HCMG, and thank you for the support. So what I want to do now is I want to jump into the future of the podcast, and we're going to talk about season 3 here, but even moving on beyond season 3, because I know when we first started doing this podcast, you know, it was like we're interviewing former players, and people were like, "Oh, you're going to run out of steam. There's going to only be so many former players you can interview," and that could have been true. But I think the difference is we have a long-term plan. And I think we have a plan to kind of grow the podcast, give Bearcat fans some unique content, which I think Bearcat fans crave. And you can tell if you go on social media, Bearcat fans want more and more content. They want to hear Bearcat football, basketball, and obviously I'm not in the football world, but they also love the basketball content. So one of the things I think we're going to do differently this season is we are going to incorporate more of the current team and also kind of future with recruiting podcasts to basically accompany the former player interviews we do. And what I found is just talking with Bearcat fans, they're like, "Oh, we love your podcast, but we want to hear you and you bring other people on that kind of talk about this team more, dive into what you're thinking about what Wes is doing." So I said, you know what? That's a great idea. So we're going to make a commitment this season to have more podcasts where we talk about the current basketball team, you know, how the games are going, what we think about the progress that Wes and his staff are making. And then also we're going to give you some great interviews. And I think one of the great things about, you know, the podcast, and I'm fortunate enough to sit in a seat where I can get a hold of a lot of the former players. I have relationships with a lot of these guys. But to have them tell their full stories. And a lot of these guys have talked to me and have said, you know what, no one has ever asked me my entire story or given me the time to tell my entire story. And I think that's very unique and something that I'll never forget. I'll never forget how emotional people were contacting me. I received calls, texts. After Herb Jones, Bearcat Hall of Famer and legend, not only legendary basketball player, but legendary person, Herb Jones, when he passed away, you know, I was fortunate enough to interview him sometime, you know, way before he passed away, and had a long form interview with him, told his entire story. And he told me that was the first time he's ever done that. And I had former players, I had, you know, family members from Herb reach out, just crying, just going, we first of all, some of them didn't know the interview existed. And then some of them were like, we've never heard Herb talk this much. And I was really proud. And I will say that, you know, I'm proud of a lot of these interviews that we do, but the Herb Jones one is one that I'm very proud that I had the opportunity. And so I think it's important that, you know, we interview as many of these former players as possible, because you know, you never know. And you want to archive, you know, as much of these great stories as possible. So, but I think here's one of the beauties of the direction we're headed. You know, I've had former Bearcat athletes, not just basketball players, that have either reached out to me or I've passed, at a game, at a tailgate for football, that want to come on the podcast. And they had nothing to do with basketball, don't even play hoop. But I think they have a great story, and they just have no way of, fully telling that story. And, some of them have heard some of the basketball interviews and said, I would love to kind of tell my full story. So we're going to have some Bearcat football players, some Bearcat baseball players, some former, great track athletes. We've had a lot of Olympians, all of which I've been in contact with a lot of folks, a lot of great former coaches that have coached with the Bearcat program, and I think they deserve that as well. So we're going to get a lot of that in Season 3, not only Bearcat basketball greats. Once again, like I said before, definitely our YouTube content, our videos, we want to get that out more. And I think it's really cool. Like, we did an interview with Armin Kirkland, and we came up to where we record the podcast up in we got a little a room in an area in which we do it up here near the Kenwood area, and just doing the interview with Armin, and we posted on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But it really hit home when a lot of people kind of saw Armin, saw his expressions, and, they saw it on the YouTube channel. He told me he was sending it out to people, and he was like, man, this is great stuff. And a lot of people, because I think sometimes you haven't seen some of these players in so long, so it's also great to actually see, how they look and how they're doing. So we're going to continue with that and hopefully build this YouTube platform as well. I think this season will be the season we do a lot of giveaways as well. So I'd like to give away some different experiences, maybe some Bearcat basketball tickets for those that don't have the opportunity to go to a game. Either they can't afford, season tickets, or have never taken their kid, especially if you have a son or daughter that you want to take to a game. I think that's awesome, and I want to make sure we get those that don't have the opportunity to usually go to a game to go and have a good experience, because that's how I got into Bearcat. Not only basketball, but even football. My father would take me, as a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid. I'm going to Nippert, I'm going to Riverfront Coliseum, the Gardens, and I'm going to these games, and I'm meeting all these greats, Roger McClendon, Romel Shorter, Cedric Glover, and next thing you know, I'm like, I'm going to be a Bearcat one day, Dad. And sure enough, that dream happened. So if we can give the opportunity some people to win some tickets and get their kids there, because you never know, we could be looking at the next Bearcat great going to some games as a young child. Not that I was a Bearcat great, no, I'm not saying that, but just having them go, and you never know what that might lead to. So definitely doing some giveaways. Probably give away some gear too, some shirts and some different things. Maybe some gift cards to Mio's. I need to hit up Rich about that. I think he would be down for that. So I think that'd be really cool. So once again, we're going to mix up the content. We're going to have, I think, to start, obviously we're not in season, so I'm getting ready, and I'm preparing to do a big interview with Kenyon Martin. I've been talking about this for a while, and we were going to do it before, but I was texting with Kenyon. He was going to come in town. It was crazy because Kenyon was coming in town, and we were going to sit down and do the interview, and he was texting me like, I can't make it. There's an ice storm, and the Bearcat game actually got canceled. There was a big ice storm, and so we ended up not doing it. And, I really wanted to do a face-to-face with him. But, with Kenyon and, his son's in the NBA, and he's got, a family, and he's got a lot going on. Any way I can get an interview with Kenyon, I'll take it. If it's by phone, if it's, in person, we'll get that done. But that will be coming. And we were going to do it another time, but the Bearcat football team was on a big run. And, Bearcat football was doing great. And I was like, Ken, we can't do it now because the Bearcat football team, all eyes are on them, and they deserve that moment. And I said, because your interview is going to be really big, let's wait till things kind of die down. So I've texted with Ken, and we're going to get something going here really soon. I want that to kind of be the big start of the interview series. And I've had a lot of former players reach out and want to be on the podcast. So there's no shortage of former players that we're going to interview. And another thing, some of the former Bearcat football players that have just graduated over the last couple years, I've been fortunate enough to have a connection with the football team and get to know a lot of the football players. Got some interviews set up with those guys too that I think would be really cool, some of which will be in the NFL. Draft coming up on Thursday. So this segment is sponsored by the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Cincinnati. They have a new flexible bachelor's degree that will allow you to graduate conveniently and affordably. You won't lose any credit or have to start over. So one of the new things that I wanted to add to this podcast, because everywhere I go, I get asked this question or somebody makes a comment to me. Matter of fact, I was in Louisville this weekend, like Stu and I were talking about, for an AU tournament, and there was a Bearcat fan there, and he had stopped me, and he asked me about a couple guys that the Bearcats were recruiting. And I get that a lot. So I'm like, you know what, that's one piece that this podcast is missing, and that is kind of like updates on recruiting. You know, who are the Bearcats recruiting? What's the portal look like? What are some of the needs? And, you know, for me, that's not really my strong suit and my expertise. I don't really get into recruiting. So I thought it would be great to get somebody who is, you know, kind of in the deep end of that and looking at all the, you know, players in the portal, who the Bearcats are recruiting. So I reached out to my guys at the Front Office News, JT Smith and Neil Meyer, and I said, hey, would you guys mind being, you know, contributors to the podcast in terms of, you know, recruiting? And they were like, absolutely. And so Neil Meyer and I text back and forth, and I said, you know what, this first episode of season 3, I want to get you on. I want to talk about, you know, some of these new kids, not only the new kids that are joining the program we got out of the portal, but also who else are we looking at in the portal, and some of the kids that played with the Bearcats last season that have jumped in the portal, and just kind of talk about, you know, all that. So reached out to my guy, Neil Meyer, and we talked a little bit about recruiting. So at this time, I want to bring in my guy, Neil Meyer.
Bearcats fans, I'm excited to welcome in Neil Meyer. He's a contributor to the Front Office News, and I asked him to come on and talk some Bearcat basketball recruiting. What's going on, Neil?
What's going on, Alex? Not much. How are you?
I'm making it, man. I'm excited for a little sunshine today. We've had some tough days weather-wise here in Cincinnati.
I can agree to that one.
Yeah, hopefully more sunny days here. But speaking of sunny days, you know, I asked you and JT Smith, you know, I sent out a group text, and I asked you guys to come on and be regulars on my podcast here for season 3 to talk recruiting. And obviously, you know, Neil, recruiting is the backbone of a basketball program, and the fans just love to hear the ins and outs of recruiting. And so I really appreciate you guys lending your time to discuss this. And by the way, Neil, you guys have been absolutely killing it lately with the content on the Front Office News. So tell everyone how they can follow you guys.
So you can follow us on all social medias at the Front Office News. You can also follow me on Instagram at myne5421. It is MEYNE 5421. And my Twitter is MeyerNeil6, and you can find JT at Twitter at JT_Smith and the Front Office News.
Good deal, man. Well, hey, let's jump right into Bearcat hoops, and I want to get your thoughts first on those players that have jumped in the portal from last season's Bearcat team, and let's go ahead and start with Matson.
Yeah, Mason was one of those guys. I mean, he was one that everyone loved in the locker room. You loved seeing him around the facilities. I mean, for everyone who got to know Mason as a person, everyone knew he was the definition of a Bearcat, I feel like. I mean, ever since he's actually entered the portal, I mean, he's still on campus, still interacting with fans and all that who've seen him, even after he's committed to Boston College. He's just one of those guys. I mean, he bled Bearcat basketball and was one of those guys. I mean, you look back at the older generations of Bearcat hoops, and he was the real definition of a UC Bearcat.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'm kind of sad it didn't work out because, like you said, he's just a tremendous young man, loves the University of Cincinnati, loves the Cincinnati community, but he had to do what was best for him, and I think he's found a good spot there at BC. So let's jump into Mikey Saunders.
Yeah, so seeing Mikey hit the portal was one that actually I feel like hurt the most, but he was also in that tough spot because you had the options of DeJulius to come back and Micah Adams-Woods entering his senior season. But Mikey, yeah, that one hurts seeing him leave just because the way he can take over a game is just relentless. The way he plays, like, you can change the game tremendously with a guy like him. I mean, with his speed, his ability to see the court, dish out the ball. I mean, he just plays the game so well. And we saw that one performance that actually stood out to me was his performance as Illinois. I think I mentioned that on the last podcast we had with you.
Yep.
The 20-point performance, 5 of 6 from the field and 9 of 10 from the free throw line. That was really the difference maker in that game, was seeing early foul trouble, Mikey coming off the bench and just absolutely changed the pace of the game.
Yeah, and like you said, I think there are a lot of fans in Bearcat Nation, specifically the younger fans, that are really going to miss Mikey because, you know, his speed to get up and down the court is so attractive to a lot of these young kids. They love seeing a fast kid, and especially the blonde, you know, fro going. You know, that was kind of his signature look. And I just ran into Mikey this past weekend in Louisville, and the blonde hair and the long hair is all gone. She chopped it off, Neil.
Yeah, I thought I saw that online. It's crazy to look Mikey.
It is. I didn't notice him at first. Well, I ran into his dad, and his dad and I know each other pretty well, and his dad told me that Mikey was over there, and I went over and I was looking for him. I was like, I did not see him. And then I just kind of saw this face, and I was like, oh, my Lord, he cut it all off. So we caught up and talked for a while, and what a tremendous kid. His family, his mother and father are just tremendous people, and I think he's got a great fit out there in Utah, which has kind of turned into like, you know, Bearcat, Bearcat West, right? So I'm happy for Mike. He'll find a good home out there, and I think he's been out in Utah in that area before, so it's not really foreign to him. Let's jump into AJ Mcginnis.
Yeah, so AJ's also one of those other guys. I know you've seen it plenty of times. He was the first guy in the gym, the last one out. I mean, even after games, I mean, we would do the press conferences and we'd come back out, maybe 30, 45 minutes later, and AJ would be sitting there getting good 150, 250 shots up right after the game. And he's just a hardworking kid. He's very determined. He's also a very confident kid. I mean, we all saw that. I mean, when he can shoot the heck out of the ball, and a lot of teams are going to see that. So Lipscomb's actually going to get a very good shooter in AJ, because when he's on, and there's no stopping that one.
Yeah, no question. Once again, another fabulous kid. The work ethic is through the roof. I mean, I could just remember you and I talking after games, and he's, you know, it's 30, 40 minutes after games, and he's just getting warmed up shooting. So the work ethic is not a question for that young man. He'll definitely be successful at Lipscomb. And Rob Banks.
Yeah, so Rob actually was an interesting piece for the Bearcats. I mean, everyone knows he was the walk-on, but during the COVID year, he played a very big role in stepping in, even got to start a few games. And obviously this season he had the knee injury, so he didn't get to really see much action on the court. But Rob was one of those. He was also one of those hard-working kids. He was also one of those ones everyone loved on on campus, the locker room. One of those just you did not want to shy away from. He was one of those outgoing kids. He really was just another true definition of being a Bearcat.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, definitely. But, you know, this is part of the business. You know, part of the business in basketball is, you know, you're recruiting kids to fit your system. And let's be honest, a lot of these young men were not recruited by Wes Miller for his system and what he likes to do. And these young men have to go find situations that work out best for them. And, you know, Coach Miller and his staff have to make business decisions and find kids that, you know, fit his program, help develop them, and hopefully they have some success. So, did I miss anybody else?
Nope.
Anybody else?
No, I think you got it.
That leads me to ask you this. The portal deadline is May 1st, correct?
To get the immediate eligibility, it is May 1st. But anything you can still enter after May 1st, you would just have to go through the NCAA for a waiver.
Gotcha. So, with that being said, do you see any other player from the Bearcats' current roster jumping in the portal before May 1st or at the May 1st deadline?
I honestly do not see anybody else hitting the portal. I think the way the roster is kind of shaping together, I think honestly the Bearcats could be pretty well set heading into the 2022 season.
Yeah, so let me quickly, before we jump into the portal a little bit more in terms of who the Bearcats are looking for, but what are your thoughts on the portal and how is it, how will it continue to change college basketball or college athletics for that matter?
Yeah, so my opinion on the portal, I'm actually all for the portal. I mean, obviously, if you're a young student athlete and you're in a position where you don't think it's going to work after 1 year, you would want to have that opportunity to explore your next route and see if you can find somewhere, maybe if it's a smaller school or another institution that you think is going to fit better to your play style. I mean, obviously, coaching changes happen very frequently in college athletics. So, I mean, obviously, I think the portal is a great thing. I mean, honestly, it's just like MLB free agency as an example. I mean, you see a lot of people entering. I think I saw online today the total is up to 1,400 players have entered.
Wow.
Just alone. So, I mean, honestly, I think it could change the best. I mean, in a position like Cincinnati is in, obviously the portal has been a hot spot the last 2 years with the new coaching staff and players coming and going. But honestly, I think the portal is good for college basketball.
Good. Now let's segue into who the Bearcats have gotten out of the portal thus far for this coming season.
Yeah, so you look into the portal so far, they have 2 commits from Kalu Azipki and Rob Finney out of Indiana and Old Dominion. So let's start with Kalu. Kalu is a 6'8", now senior, coming from Old Dominion. Was averaging 11.4 points per game last season, 7 rebounds, shot 52% from the field while also dishing out nearly 2 assists per game. So, I mean, you have a big 6'8", 240-pound guy down in the paint. I think that's what the Bearcats needed, was someone who can not only get to the rim but really be physical down low. And I think he'll be a great fit for the Bearcats, not only just to have his offensive on the board and defensively as well on the board. I mean, having that kind of talent to really get to the line, get to the hoop, and then just crash the boards. I think that's what they really needed, was some size down low.
Yeah, and Neil, listen, I don't get too caught up in seeing like highlights of players, but I saw his highlights on Instagram, and I really liked what I saw. I mean, it just seemed like he was a Bearcat type of guy with that toughness and kind of had that look of a Eric Hicks type kid.
Yep, his physicality is what really stood out to me.
I love it. That's something we need. And by the way, you did great with pronouncing their names. I looked at that and I was like, I'm gonna let Neil pronounce them, and I'm gonna pass on that. Rob from Indiana. Some thoughts on him and what he can provide to this Bearcat team, because from the things that I hear, obviously he's a really good player, but he's been troubled with injuries, and that's what's kind of maybe held him back over the years.
So Rob Finney from Indiana, that's kind of a name that really stood out to me just because I actually had family who went to school at Indiana. So watching Indiana basketball is something we did a lot growing up. So I've actually got to see Rob the last 4 years quite a bit on ESPN and whatnot. So Rob actually has hit some big-time clutch shots over the last few years during his time at Indiana. But what stands out to him is his physicality on defense. And we saw last year, it was David DeJulius guarding the best player on the team along with John. But having another guy like Rob who can play that guard position so well and has played against such high-level competition in the Big Ten and has been known for his defense, when he's fully healthy, he's a lockdown defender. Obviously, the injuries have rattled him over the last few years, but when he's healthy, he could be a first-team All-AAC defender, in my opinion.
I'd love to hear that. Now, with those 2 guys coming in, and obviously they come with a wealth of experience, do you see either one of those guys either starting right off the bat, or having a huge impact off the bench, like the sixth guy, the seventh guy, right away?
I can see Kalu maybe sneaking his way into the starting lineup at the beginning of the season, just because that experience and his physicality to really get active on the boards and defensively. But Finney would be a great sixth or seventh guy off the bench for the Bearcats. I mean, obviously you have one of the best point guards in the country in ratio to turnover and assist in Micah Adams-Woods, and then you have David DeJulius, who had a tremendous 2021 season. So I think the guards, Finney could be one of those guys that comes off the bench, and it just could provide big minutes when it comes to the defensive role. If you need to stop, give a quick breath to either one of those guys between DeJulius and Micah, and I think you really won't miss a beat with either one of them.
And Neil, I think that's a great segue into, the current roster, basically the guys returning. I mean, you mentioned David DeJulius, Mike Adams-Woods. Obviously, John Newman announced during a press conference that he was coming back. C.J. Anthony, preferred walk-on. Jeremiah Davenport, Vic, obviously Big Vic, Jared Hensley, Odie. With the makeup of that, these portal kids, what else do the Bearcats need to address this offseason?
I mean, the Bearcats are still looking actively in the portal, and I know one guy they are actively looking at is Memphis transfer Landers Nalia. I know they transferred. That would be
it's a big one.
A big guy to land. I mean, we obviously have got to see him up close and personal quite a few times over the last 3 years, and I know he was on campus over the weekend. So that would be a big one to have. I know I actually got to see Landers down in Dallas for the Fort Worth for the AAC tournament. So I got to see him 3 games in a row, and he was very impressive defensively. He didn't have his best of shooting days down there, but he has shown during the seasons when he scores, he can score. He had 3 20-point games in the season and averaged 10 points a game. So being a 6'7" guard is something you really can't go wrong with in the AAC, and especially heading forward to the Big 12. I think that would be a big one if they can land that. And then obviously you look to this weekend, you have the big commitment day for local 4-star product, Rayvon Griffiths. So, I mean, if you can land either one of those two, if not both, what can go wrong for this Bearcat program heading into the future?
And I think that's just great momentum if they're able to land those two guys. What do you think the chances of us landing those two guys?
I saw Landers knock down his final 3 to Texas A&M, Cincinnati, and I believe it was, can't remember the other school off the top of my head, but there was a final 3, Texas A&M, us, and somebody else. So I think the chances realistically are very, very good. I mean, obviously with Rayvon too, I mean, local Cincinnati kid, yes, top 5. His top 5 includes Ohio State, Alabama, Kansas, Cincinnati, and then you have UCLA in the mix, who is also another former Bear head coach out there. I mean, that'd be big if you can get a local 4-star and someone as talented as Rayvon to stay home.
Yeah, no question. And I think looking at the success that Luke Fickell has had, I think Luke Fickell's has done 2 things that have been super impressive, and that's putting his arms around recruiting locally in this region and recruiting the right type of kids for his culture and his program. Right? I think that is one of the most important things. And sometimes people on the outside don't always understand what coaches are looking for. And that's what I've liked about Wes Miller as well, is like there's a certain type of player that he wants to fit his system, because there's a certain style of play, Neil, that he wants to play that we didn't get to see last year because he didn't have the personnel to play that style. So he had to adjust his complete, culture and game plans to fit who he had. So just imagine what he and the staff will be capable of doing with the guys that fit their culture.
Exactly.
So I'm tremendously excited. So last thing I want to ask you, and I'll let you go, and I really want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it, even now and moving forward, you coming on, and we continue to talk about recruiting. Last year, obviously, I think some fans' expectations at the start of the season, maybe after the Illinois game and that stretch that the Bearcats had early, some of the expectations became unrealistic. And I could put myself in that boat. We started to see really what the team looked like as we got a little later in the season, some of the deficiencies that the team had. I would say that, the season went well. I wouldn't say great, but it was fine. But we can't have a season like that again. We need to continue to see steps moving towards, a direction of being a top 25 program consistently, then a top 15, top 20, top 10 consistently. Do you see that next year, us headed in the right direction based on, who's coming in this current roster?
I do. I actually do see that top 25 program actually taking that next leap back to what Bearcat basketball actually is. I mean, you look at some of the recruits that Wes Miller has already landed. You have two top 100 recruits in Daniel Skillings and Josh Reed, who are both 6'6", 6'7" guys who can really create a lot of ability for this Bearcats team. I know Daniel Skillings was a little late bloomer, but from what people who don't know Daniel Skillings is, he's not even done yet. I mean, there's a chance he could be a top 20 player in his class before even coming to Cincinnati.
Man, that's good. That's good. And we need, I think in this landscape of college basketball, and you tell me if you agree or disagree with this, Neil, but I think you do need a great mixture of portal guys that have kind of been around for 2 or 3 years, and then new fresh blood. You need that new fresh young talent. And hopefully we see that not only this coming year, but also moving forward.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that if you can provide that great veteran leadership with either from a homegrown guy like they have here between DeJulius or Jeremiah Davenport to transfer portals like Finney and Azepke, I mean, that veteran leadership and those people who have saw that time to play really stands out when it comes to a locker room. And I think two guys who really saw that this year was Hayden Koval and Abdul Ado. I mean, just even though the stats might say a little differently, I mean, you could just see the veteran leadership from both of those guys on the court.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, listen, next time you come on, I want to take some more time to talk a little bit about NIL deals and how that's impacting recruiting, because it's having a huge impact on recruiting and players asking for, hey, I need a $300,000, $400,000 NIL deal if I'm even going to sign with you guys.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother world, right?
Yeah, no, it really is. It is a whole nother world out there now with the NIL.
Yeah. Let's save that for the next episode. I definitely want to do that. And hey, you did fantastic, man. I knew I got the right guy with you and JT and the great job you guys do. And I know you guys have the pulse on this Bearcat basketball, not only basketball but also football program. So I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on. And also, once again, give a shout out to how the Bearcat fans can follow you and get all your guys' content.
Well, I really appreciate you for having me on, Alex. You can find us on Instagram at Front Office News. You can find myself on Twitter at MeyerNeil6. You can find us on Twitter at The Front Office News. You can find JT on Twitter at _JT_Smith. And, yeah, you can find us all on social media through The Front Office News. And we're looking forward to providing all the best content for you guys.
Awesome, man. Awesome. You're great, man. Appreciate it, Neil. We'll catch up and talk soon, okay?
Yeah, not a problem, Alex. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Take care.
All right. That was great. So I told a lot of people, like, the Front Office News is killing it with the content right now. JT Smith does a great job. As you can tell with Neil Meyer, like he's on this stuff. He's on point. So it's going to be great having him on, throughout season 3 talking about recruiting. So it really knocked it out of the park. And a couple things that I want to piggyback that Neil and I talked about. We talked about, some of the Bearcat players from last season that jumped into the portal, Mason Matson. And I want to dive a little bit more into Mason. We talked about what a fantastic, kid he is, high character young man. And when he decided to jump in the portal, I text him, and we text back and forth for a little while. And I mean, just a fantastic kid, man. He loves Cincinnati. You know, he'll always be a Bearcat. He's telling me all this stuff, and I'm going to come back and visit. I'm going to come back and hang out. I want you to come to a game. Come watch me play. All that stuff, man. I'm going to miss him because, obviously I wish he would have, been able to be here for his entire Bearcat career, because I think he would have been one of those guys that would have ended up a fan favorite and, people love. But, he had to do what's best for him and make a business decision, as I like to call it. So I wish Mason nothing, but the best. And I definitely stay in contact with him. And it was crazy in Louisville this past weekend, as I was talking with Stu, I had mentioned that there was a Bearcat connection to that game, or the games, that Mikey Williams, and for those that don't know, Mikey Williams is one of the top recruits in the country. And he was traveling to Cincinnati from North Carolina with his team. And actually, Mikey Williams, the team he plays on, the AU team, is coached. It's a LaMelo Ball team. I think they're called 1 of 1, I believe, right? It's a LaMelo Ball Puma team. The guy who coaches that team is a young man named Nick Johnson, who's from Cincinnati, Ohio. Nick's a good friend of mine. He moved down to North Carolina and kind of fell into this opportunity. So Nick's a great young man. And the one game they played George Hill. George Hill's AU team out of Indianapolis. And the head coach of that team, of George Hill's team, is Mike Saunders, Sr., father of Mikey Saunders, played with the Bearcats. So I saw Big Mike. He came over to me. He's like, "Hey, what's up, Meech?" I was like, "Oh man, I didn't even know he was going to be there." We talked for a little bit. He's like, "Mikey's here. He's over there." So I head over to the court, and I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't see him. And finally, I spot this kid, and I see this face, and I'm like, that's Mikey, but where's the hair? He had completely cut off all the blonde locks. Just everything was gone, clean shaven. And kind of threw me off. Looked like a totally different person. But after the game, Mikey and I caught up for a little bit and talked. His mom came over, who's just the sweetest lady ever. And we talked for probably around 30 minutes. Took a picture, I posted on Twitter. Mikey's going to do really well at Utah. He's just a tremendous kid, tremendous player. He's going to be fantastic out there. So I wish him nothing but the best. And it's always sad to me when these kids have to move on and maybe switch and go to different schools and jump in the portal, especially when you get high character young men like Mason and Mikey, and they're definitely going to be missed. But I have a lot of faith in Wes Miller and his staff for not only bringing in high-level basketball players, but also really high-level human beings that will put their arms around the greater Cincinnati area community, which is very, very important. I think we need to have more players that are willing to do that, so that when they finish up their time at the university, if they go play pro in the NBA or go overseas, they kind of make a commitment that they'll always come back and be part of Cincinnati. And I was driving around today, and I'm listening to national radio, and Sauce Gardner was on an NFL show, and they were talking about his time with the Bearcats, and he goes, "Man, Cincinnati will always be my home." And he says, I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna do this and that. He was talking about different things he was gonna do in this community, even when he's playing in the NFL. And I thought that was really special. I thought that was really cool. And if we can see that, duplicated with the basketball program, what Luke Fickell's done and the quality guys that he's brought in, I think, we're just trending up in terms of what we're seeing with the Bearcat basketball program. And speaking of all that, I do want to, quickly talk about Wes Miller and what a tremendous human being he is. And I got to tell this story. He does not know that I'm sharing this on the podcast, but so I reached out to him, and I asked him if I could meet with him and bring another gentleman along with me, a gentleman named John Silverman. And John Silverman he heads up, and he's a large part of a community action agency called Talbert House, and I sit on one of the committees for Talbert House, and we have one of the programs is called the Fatherhood Committee, and we raise, $350,000 and up to help rehabilitate down and out fathers, whether it's drug, alcohol, whatever the case might be. They've gone to jail, or getting them out and get them rehabilitated and get them reconnected back to their families and becoming fathers. And it's a very, very important program, one of the top ones in the country. And of course, I think it's important if we get a guy like Wes Miller connected in. I've got Luke Fickle. He's been there. I got Luke Fickle connected in. I thought it was important to get Wes in. So John Silverman, who kind of heads things up, he and I went over to meet with Wes, and Wes was beyond fantastic. And he goes, what can we do to make sure that not only, he goes, I'm involved. He's like, you got me. Don't worry about that. But we want to get our players involved in this and seeing the importance of being a father is. And I thought that was tremendous, because we've met with a lot of people that are head coaches, and I don't think any of them have ever offered up getting their players involved and wanting them to kind of learn more about fatherhood, because there's some guys on the Bearcat basketball team that are fathers, that will be fathers, and for them to learn some of these things early on is very important. So Wes is thinking of an even bigger picture, and he's going to be very, very active in our community. So I'm pumped. I'm pumped to have him involved. So he's going to attend we're doing a big dinner in June at the new Ballet Center, which is a fantastic, that place is fantastic, which most people don't know. If you're driving on 71, you can see the new Ballet Center, but a lot of people don't know that the Ballet Center was funded by, Mike Valentine and Peg Valentine, who are huge UC backers. They sit courtside at the UC games. And then Larry Kieckley also was involved in helping contribute to make sure the new Ballet Center was built. And obviously Larry Kieckley is huge in terms of UC athletics. So you got two huge UC athletic guys that are involved in building this Ballet Center, and that's the facility that we're going to use for this event. Wes Miller is involved, so that's I'm happy. I'm excited. So, and I want to use that to segue into kind of my thoughts on next year, or next season, I should say. I'm pumped, and I know. Listen, last year wasn't the season I think that everybody may have wanted after the expectations reached a certain level. After the Illinois game and Arkansas, like people's expectations, including myself, went up really high. But I think you could see things trending in the right direction in terms of Wes Miller and his staff. I always want Wes Miller gets a lot of credit, but let's be real. He's got a great staff. I mean, a great staff, and they are very instrumental in all this. But they really put in a culture of positive energy, like not just beyond X's and O's, folks. Like building the foundation of positive energy, a lot of learning, players developing. You could just feel it when you walked into practice. I took a couple different high-level business people with me. One time I took a big-time CEO with me, and he was like, I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot from just watching Wes and his staff and the energy that's in here. I thought that was very impressive, and I just love the foundation that he's built. And I think with, the guys coming back from last year, some of the recruits coming in, the portal guys, and possibly, a couple more guys they may land that, Neil and I talked about. The future's bright, and I'm extremely, extremely excited. So with that being said, I do want to jump into the last part of this podcast. This isn't going to be a tremendously long podcast, but we talked a little bit about, Bearcat hoops, but I want to bring Stu Holt back in. I kind of want to talk about what's trending right now. And I've got a couple topics, and we'll tie kind of the Bearcats' athletics into this a little bit. But what's trending right now? And Stu, I want to get your thoughts on this. Mm-hmm. Twitter is such a, it's such an event. To me, it's an event-based platform in terms of anytime something's going on, it's being tweeted about, right?
Absolutely.
So Grammys,
Yep.
Oscars, and the whole Will Smith thing, we all know what goes, Super Bowl. Like I can go on and on. There's people are tweeting, and
It's like a live discussion.
a live discussion. I call it a fire hydrant of just info, just like you're just getting hit with all this stuff. Elon Musk, was it $43 billion? Is that correct?
Yeah, somewhere near.
Has purchased, or they've agreed that he and his group will purchase Twitter. I don't even, I see all these tweets, people arguing, going back and forth. You got freedom of speech, all this stuff. I'm not even sure all the details. What are your thoughts on Elon Musk purchasing Twitter for $43 billion?
I mean, hey,
How do you find $43 billion?
he just has $43 billion. Like, you know what? Look, what can I do with this? I think I'm gonna buy Twitter. I think I'm gonna buy Twitter. He probably was on Twitter and was like, I'm gonna buy Twitter. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna buy Twitter.
You know, we should have had what I should have done is thought of, okay, what other things could he have done with $43 billion? That should have been the topic of all the different. I think I saw something on Twitter where he could give everyone in the United States of America like $1.5 million and still have like 30, I don't know what is million left over. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing. Like there's a lot of different. So
Stu, if you had $43 billion to spend, and I think I know what your answer might be. What would you purchase if you had $43 billion?
$43 billion.
And you had to purchase something with that. I kind of think I know what you're going to say.
I think I'm gonna buy MySpace. No, I could buy that for.
You could get that for $43. You could get MySpace for $43. But let's be honest. MySpace was popping back in the day.
It was. I don't think there ever was. None of these apps really can be. MySpace was just a different.
I think MySpace should come back just for
It was ahead of its
like
time.
a week.
It was ahead of its time.
It was. It for sure was. Imagine if MySpace just came back for a week and everybody had their same account.
Ooh, you can go back to your.
All right. Let's be real. What would you purchase? I'm disappointed you aren't. This should have come right off.
You had something that you thought I was going to purchase?
Yeah. Yes, we've talked about this.
Oh, the restaurant? What are you talking about?
Stu, I'm really disappointed in you right now.
The restaurant? We talked about
What
this.
does Cincinnati need according to you?
Oh, good. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. If I had $43 billion to spend,
Okay.
Cincinnati would for sure have an NBA team.
Yes. There it is.
For sure. No doubt.
We've talked about this.
No doubt about it.
The Cincinnati, what would you call it?
The Cincinnati Goods.
The very goods.
The Cincinnati, what do I don't know.
Okay.
know.
Yeah. Stew on that. You like what I did there?
That's good.
Stew on that.
That's very good.
Next podcast, you come back.
Come back with a name.
I'd like to hear. We'll challenge this.
Okay.
Next podcast, we're going to talk about what we would do with 43 bill. I'll come back with something. I'll have the name. I'll kind of have a business plan together.
Very
so
good.
you're going to do that for the Cincinnati, and it can't be the Cincinnati Royals. The
right,
original.
right.
It's
It
got
has
to
to be a
something
new original name.
Right. New branding. Everything.
Very good.
Okay. Let's segue and talk a little bit, since we're on the NBA topic. Let's talk about, which is one of the most debated things on Twitter right now, and that is KD and Kyrie. And I don't know if you'd call it like the downfall, the implosion of the Nets. What would you call it? Because the Nets were a disaster this year.
The exposure. How about that? Because I seen somebody on Twitter. Actually, it was Tim Grover.
Oh yeah, the Jordan and Kobe's trainer, right?
Yep, he wrote the book Relentless, and he said that he basically was saying the best players don't mean the best team. It's about the best players that could play the best together.
Yeah.
You know, and it's always been the truth, you know, because he was talking about not just the Nets. Mm-hmm. He was talking about how the Lakers as well, and how the two teams that a lot of people were saying earlier in the season or in the preseason that they thought would meet up in the finals, one didn't even make the playoffs, and the other one got swept in the first round.
Wow.
So he's saying, like, people were looking at the best players, like, oh, they got LeBron, they got Melo, they got Westbrook, they got Anthony Davis, they got Dwight Howard, they got, I think they had Rondo as well in the beginning, right?
Who was in Louisville this weekend?
He was. I did see him.
Yeah.
I did see him. And so, you know, people were looking at that and was like, oh, who's going to beat these guys? And people were saying, like, who's going to beat them 4 times?
Before they even played,
right? Well, nobody has to beat them 4 times because they didn't even make the playoffs.
Yep.
You know, and then people were looking at the Nets because at the time, Harden was on the Nets. So it was Harden, it was KD, and it was Kyrie. And, of course, you know, Kyrie didn't play a lot in the beginning because of the whole COVID situation.
Do you think it would have been different if the COVID situation, the vaccine wasn't in place? Do you think that having him early on?
I think it definitely would have been different. It has, I mean, no doubt. I don't know how different. I don't know how much it would have affected, but I do know that the fact that he wasn't there affected them.
Yeah.
And so,
for sure.
And it was kind of a distraction.
Yeah, it was
right?
a distraction.
So
That's a very good word.
You know what I mean? So if you take away that distraction from the team, right, and they really get to lock in, they get to gel with each other, they get to get some time in, training camp and all of that stuff, then I think it could definitely be a different story. You know, and they instead they traded James Harden. They got Ben Simmons, who is they don't have Ben Simmons, at least not right now. But, you know, which is another added distraction. So this team has been full of distractions.
It was full of distractions. I agree. And you know what? And here's the thing. And you could say what you want, but there are so many great storylines to this playoff. Mm-hmm. Like, it may not be, and I think the first round has been good. Like, the Celtics are impressive, but. Like, just imagine, like, and when I say storylines, just imagine if Ben Simmons played. Like, everybody would be tuned in.
Oh, for sure.
Because they want to see what's going on with this dude. Imagine if Zion actually hit the court. Like, people are going to want to watch that.
Yeah.
Right? These are storylines that you could look at as negative, but, you know, just from a pop culture standpoint, like, it's something everyone's talking about.
It builds an anticipation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because there were rumors, right? Oh, Ben Simmons, he might play in Game 4, which I'm like, he's not playing no Game 4.
He won't.
Like, and then they lose.
Yeah. I agree. So I don't think it was good for Ben Simmons to even step on the court this year. I think he needs to get the help he needs, get himself together, and
get situated.
Because what if he comes out and he plays just absolutely horrible? Now he's just going to be getting crushed. So let's get him right. And the same with Zion. Like, you know, he's got to get in. I think he's got to get in the shape that's going to allow him to have a long career in the NBA. Mm-hmm. He's not in that shape. Right. And I've said that from day one. I know some people have disagreed with me, but what have we seen? Injury. And, you know, he's got to address some of those things. Yeah. But quickly back to the KD and Kyrie thing. And the one thing that does bother me is I think I'll throw myself in there, we are so quick to judge, like, there's all this KD slander now on Twitter, right? Because he had a poor series, right? Yeah. I still think KD is one of the best players in the world.
Oh, no doubt.
Right? And they're like, oh, he's not even, you know, people are just killing him. You know, he's not even top 5, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna tell you what, I think it's almost a good thing for KD to go through that and hear all this, and I think he's going to come back next year. Just knowing his mentality and how he is, he's going to come back.
That's fuel to the fire for him. You know, that's fuel to the fire because somebody like him who loves basketball, he's like,
he loves it.
He loves it. Like, if he wasn't in the NBA,
he would,
he would be hooping somewhere.
He would be at some park hooping, talking trash.
Yep.
I totally agree with that. I still think he's one of, I think he's the top guy and when he's in, I think he's a lot of times he's engaged. He struggled in one series. Okay, whoop-de-doo, but
Right.
I think he's the best. I love probably of all the players in the NBA from tip to buzzer, KD's one of my favorites to watch.
Yeah.
His ability to handle the basketball, get from one end to the other, and pull up
People
mid-range.
were just saying how great he was.
Yeah, and then that's my point, right?
They were just saying like he's the greatest. People were saying to me he's the greatest scorer of all time.
They did, which I disagreed with.
Right,
but
me too. But it's like y'all were just saying that, and then now people are saying, you ready for this? They're saying, oh, see, he can't do what LeBron did. But wait a minute. Even before that, y'all were just saying stuff like, oh, LeBron can't do it without Kyrie. He can't. And I'm like, wait a minute.
You gotta pick.
Y'all need to pick a side. Like John Moran said, he said, stay over there. I seen y'all switch up. Stay over there. People be switching up. And I'm like, people will criticize you either way. They'll try to write you off.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, especially if you're a star. If you're a star, they're going to try to write you off when you have a bad series, bad game, bad year.
And to that point, I want to say this. I don't care how much these guys make, right? Millions and millions. In some cases, over the course of their career with endorsements, they're just, some of them would be billionaire. Like LeBron would be a billionaire if he's not already. They're still human beings. And the criticism still hurts. You look at Kyrie. He's given the finger to fans in Boston. A baseball game the other day. I don't remember what team it was, but one of the baseball players got on another player's shoulder and was yelling at one of the fans in right field and kind of going at this fan, and I don't care how much money these guys make, but they're still human beings. They still are sensitive people, and I think a lot of these players put a lot into their craft, more than we see, because we don't see what happens in the kitchen. We see what's brought out to the table a lot of the times.
Good. That's good.
We get that plate, and you look and you can criticize, but we don't know what happened in the kitchen and what type of work they put in. So
wow, that's good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
You like that?
I like that. I'm gonna have to use that. I'm gonna have to use that. That's good.
Just Venmo me every time you
very
use
good.
a dollar.
Royalties. He gonna go.
No question.
but that's legit, because Nick, I hope I say his name right, Nick Castellanos.
Yeah.
All right. So he had an interview talking about the Reds.
Yep.
Right. Talking about the organization, and he was saying what people don't realize, we understand that it's a business, right? But looking at it as a business is not how we got here. So, we understand that, but what other people have to understand is we thoroughly love this game. We put in blood, sweat, and tears because of the love of the game. We didn't get here by thinking of it as a business. We got here because of the love of it. Right. So now we have to adjust and see it as a business and stuff like that. But he said he put his blood, sweat, and tears into the whole city, into the organization, which he did, right? And so people say, well, you got to understand it is a business, and yes, that is true. Don't get me wrong. But he made a good point when he said, yeah, that is true, but that's not how we got here.
Yep.
Right?
No question.
And so,
can we use that as a segue to talk about the Reds?
Very good.
Phil Castellini making the comments directed at the fans. What was it? Where else are you going to go?
Where else are you going to go?
And listen, I know you're like me. We're Reds fans.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
I've been a Reds fan since I was little. Big Red Machine, Dave Parker. My favorite Red still to this day is Eric Davis. Will always be my favorite, Reds player ever. Will always be a Reds fan. Obviously, those comments were very disappointing. And I think I saw on Twitter today the attendance. I think the Reds are playing the Padres. I think it's the Padres series, if I'm not mistaken. The attendance was 876 people.
See.
And I'm not sure if that was completely accurate, but they're feeling the impact of that. But the fans are not happy in this city.
And you know what? Here's the thing as well. This is what happens. The Cincinnati Bengals. So the city got to see what happens. What can happen in our sports world. So the expectation after the Bengals going to the Super Bowl, getting Joe Burrow, and now they're spending money on the O-line, all these things that we're like, yes, finally.
Practice bubble, right?
Yeah, we're like, finally, let's go. This is what we've been waiting for. And now baseball season comes around, and it's like, okay, Reds, what y'all gonna do? It's time.
We're gonna trade everybody.
We're gonna trade everybody. We're trading everybody away. And Cincinnati had guys that the city fell in love with.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, man, like even just different personalities. Castellanos was one of the biggest personalities, right? We got hyped at one time, and it's like, yeah, let's go. You know, when you have players like that, you have to value that and understand, like, okay, the city can get behind these type of people, right? And so it's like the Bengals had times where it's like, man, like, we're not investing, it don't seem like, into the players or into, and now it seems like we're finally doing it. And the city was excited. Yeah. And the city is still excited. And we're riding that high still. And we're like, all right, Reyes, let's go. Y'all turn.
Yeah. Well, so you made a lot of great things that I want to say. Well, so I think with the Reds, for me, there wasn't a clear-cut, at least, plan that was articulated to what they're doing.
Right.
I mean, they didn't even feed us any BS. Like, feed us something that's like makes me feel good, even if it's not entirely true. Yeah. I feel like maybe that plan and that vision wasn't in place. And then with the Bengals, and you make a great point, I think with the Bengals, and obviously football, NFL football and Major League Baseball are two totally different business businesses, and how the different leagues work, and it's, you know, a little tougher. But I think with football, if you land a great quarterback, a lot of things could move in a very positive direction quickly, and we obviously saw that with Joe Burrow.
Right.
Now, I think with Joe Burrow, not only is he a really, really good quarterback, but I think he's just got this swag about him, right? And he's not a loud person. He's not even when he talks, it's not super engaging, but he just has this way about him that's very unique. Yep. And it just draws you in, right?
Yep.
He's just got it. Like Tim Tebow, you know, may not have been the greatest NFL player, but there's just something about Tebow that makes him special. Joe Burrow's like that. So I guess my point with the Bengals is when they realized I think they fell into Joe Burrow. Let's be honest too. At the same token, just the way that things kind of fell, they got him. But you have to now do right. Like, you've got to make some moves because you have this golden nugget in Joe Burrow. You can't.
Can't mess it up.
You can't fuck this up. Like, you cannot fuck this up.
You can't.
Right?
You can't. Yeah.
And I think I think the Bengals have made some excellent moves and are, you know, doing some great things that have, like you said, ignited this community. And I thought the Super Bowl run was so special because the city has had so many letdowns, right? It was like, didn't you feel like every Bengals game, it was like, oh man, some shit's about to happen.
Oh, every time.
Every time, right?
Every time.
But it was like the Joe Burrow just got this. It's the Joe Burrow. And listen, like, I mean, there are a lot of great players on that football team. Don't get me wrong, but it all came from Joe Burrow.
Yeah, it was special, man. It really was. Just that
because people wanted Zach Taylor fired. Let's not get it twisted.
We could talk about that too, because that's how they do. We just talked about Kevin Durant. We talked about LeBron James, and they were doing the same thing to Zach Taylor. And then now they're saying that's my coach and all of that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I just wanted him fired not too long ago.
Wanted him out. So I was at Landmark. For those here in Cincinnati, there are a lot of AU games, league games, and different things played at Landmark Christian School. And Zach Taylor was there with his kid. This was a while back. And there were people there like, this is before the Super Bowl run.
Okay.
And there were people like, how is he a head coach of a NFL team when he was like, he was like at UC, he wasn't even that good of a coach and blah, blah, blah. Like, there were people just there talking about him, like not to his face, but he's there and they see him. And then, gosh, 8 months later.
Now those same people, if they saw him, they'll get a picture. So
You better believe
they'll
it.
get a picture.
You
and
better
be like, this is
believe
our
it.
coach. It's my coach. I always knew it.
Don't ever leave.
Don't ever leave. I always knew you had it in you.
No, you did.
When you were at UC, I saw it in you.
You were booing his ass.
But that's
just
part of it. You know what I mean? That you're gonna have those moments, man.
And that's why the older I've gotten and the more people that I've gotten to know in not only the collegiate space but also in the professional sports space, I've been a little hesitant to be critical of organizations, of individuals, just because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and things could turn around so quickly.
Yep.
Right? You never know how things can turn around. You write somebody else. Just like you said, when the Nets had KD, Kyrie, and Harden, I mean, if we probably go back and look at those tweets when all three of those were on the same team, what were they saying?
Yeah.
NBA champions.
NBA champions.
Right?
Yep.
So, and how quickly that changed. So you never know. And but listen, I'm going to be a Reds fan. I hope they can get some things figured out. And we were talking about, Phil Castellini made his comments, and I don't know why, whatever he said what he said, but no matter what apology you put out, I told you this before the podcast, whatever apology you put out, it's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be right. It's going to be, they're going to put the microscope on every word. They're going to say somebody else wrote it. It came from the office, floor 19, and dropped down to the people. And this is why I said, if I'm Phil Castellini, first of all, I wouldn't have made those comments. But if I was Phil and I made those comments and something like that happened, I think an apology, whatever you say, is not going to be good enough. Your actions have to really speak loud, right? So you've got to get in front of it. I would go to Great American Ballpark. At the game, I'm walking around the concourse level. I'm taking all the heat. I'm listening to people yell at me, say what you want to say. I'm sitting with the people with the brown bags over their heads, saying, listen, my comments were poorly articulated. I got to do better. We got to do better. What do you want to see? And just engage with, engage with people.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But you got to come down out of them offices.
You have to. You
Right?
got to come down. You got to come down, because the reason those remarks was more of a I'm up here, you're down there.
Bingo.
You know what I mean?
Well said.
And so now it's time for you to come down and be like, no, I'm with you.
I'm with.
You know what I mean?
That is so. We got to clip that, and we're
Very
going to send
good.
that to Phil.
Very good.
I'm saying like I know him. I've never met the man in my life. That is so.
I got to go to the concourse level. You might be.
But seriously, can you imagine if one of your friends or somebody you see was like, yo, Phil Castellini came and sat next to me at the game, and like I couldn't really yell at him, but we started to talk, and he wasn't that bad of a dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna take your arrows, but that's just what you got to do. I really like what you said. Yeah. We're gonna clip that. Hey, let's jump into two more things, and then we're gonna wrap this up here. But I want to talk about the NFL draft coming up on Thursday. And you look at all the different major league sports, professional sports, I should say. You look at baseball. I don't think I've ever seen the MLB draft in my life. Have you?
No, I forgot there was one.
I don't even know when it is.
I don't know.
Good Lord. I said, and to their credit, it's a different system.
Yes.
It's a different, it's a different system.
And I think that's something they need to. I think baseball in general needs to work on their marketing and their.
Oof.
Because
you ain't lying.
A sport like that, it's one of the major sports.
Absolutely.
There's no
People
way
love
that
baseball.
Yeah, but the marketing and the social, the whole thing needs a revamping.
I almost feel like somebody really cool needs to
take over like the marketing of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like somebody really cool.
Who would you choose? You know how they have like celebrities that's like, oh, he's now the head of, and they're like, oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's got to be somebody that loves baseball, not just like you can't just grab like P. Diddy, who
Right.
I don't even think P. Diddy knows anything about baseball.
Right.
I mean, he could, but I don't know. But somebody that knows, has some passion for it, but yet in a cool space that young people love, can engage and get the culture. I have to think about, that's a great question. I have to think about who that person could be. You have somebody in mind?
Somebody that's into baseball that can.
Man, that's a good question. I have to think about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think you're exactly right. So someone that can, like, for example, growing up, I was a huge baseball fan, partly because the Reds were good.
Mm-hmm.
They went to the World Series when I was in school, and Eric Davis, but like I knew the players on the Pittsburgh Pirates team. Like
Right.
Jose Lean was one of my favorite players ever. He played for the Pirates. Ozzie Smith from St. Louis, he used to come out and do a backflip when he would come, to the infield out of the dugout. Nolan Ryan, one of my favorite pitchers of all time. I mean, I can go on and on about baseball players I knew from all the different teams. I love the hats. Like I wanted to start collecting all the different baseball hats and baseball cards. I feel like that's not to the level now as it was back then, and it's lost that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can go around Cincinnati. I mean, I guarantee you, most people don't know who's on the Reds team.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not even sure David Bell, the manager, knows who's on the team day to day. But I think you're exactly right, and they've got to figure out a way to make it cool, because I think they have some good stars in Major League Baseball, but they're not promoted and marketed. You look at these other sports, and you look at football and basketball, and it's just, I mean, football is in a whole nother world right now. I mean, football is as big as like religion or something, like church. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, and you got to think about it. So Roger Goodell.
Yep.
Right. He's the commissioner.
What does he make? $43 million a year or something like that?
Oh, does he?
I'm gonna look that up. Go ahead. Go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
He's gonna buy my space.
That was great. You are killing it tonight. I'm gonna look it up. I'll look it up.
I gotta look something else up because. Then you got Adam Silver, right?
Great commissioner. 63.9 million.
Wow.
A year. Wait a minute. I take that back. It says he had 127.8 million 2019 to 2021. He made 127.8 million.
That's crazy.
Okay.
And so that's Roger Goodell, right?
Correct.
And then you get Adam Silver, right?
Great commissioner. Probably the best commissioner in all of.
Yes. And then the MLB commissioner, right? His name is.
He's awful.
Or his name is. His name is.
Oh, you asked me his name? I forgot what his name is.
No, don't look it up.
Don't look it up.
That was my point.
I can't.
That was my point.
I knew.
But that was my point.
So real quick, and I think it was the World Series. Yes. He had to do like a presentation. He had he had to give like a speech. It was so bad. It was just like.
But this is my point.
I know where you're going.
Like that's my point. Like where are you? You know what I mean? Like where, like your face. If somebody showed me a picture, I would not know. I don't know his name. If I seen a picture, I definitely wouldn't be like, oh, that's the commissioner of the MLB. Now I'm sure that there are people who are really into baseball who know and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's time. Baseball needs a social media, marketing, branding. They need to have a big meeting, and they need to have somebody like you said that comes in and they're the head of marketing or whatever.
Yep.
And make it, more appealing.
Then you did clean. Rob Manfred.
Who?
Rob Manfred is the commissioner.
Major
League Baseball.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like who would come in, and I'm like,
no.
Okay.
It took me a while to,
Where I'm at. Okay.
Yeah. But quickly back to the NFL draft, and my point with that is like the NFL draft is of all the sports is the biggest.
Right.
I mean, people are gonna. I think like, was it last year? I don't know if they've done this in years prior, but like they have the fans there, like the
the
diehard fan.
NBA does that.
NBA does that.
Yep, because the New York fans be going crazy every time. Yep.
So, so the NFL draft's coming up, and I want to say this. This is the year that we're going to see a lot of Bearcat football players drafted. Not only drafted, but I think we're going to see a lot of Bearcat football players in the NFL for a long time. And that's a credit to Luke Fickell and his staff for the kids that they've brought in and the kids that they developed as well. And I think, if you think about, Bearcat basketball when Hugs was here, when Hugs got this thing rocking and rolling, he was putting guys in the league, in the NBA, recruits wanted to come here.
Right.
Because they're like, he's going to get me to the league. Right? And so you look at what Luke Fickell's doing is, you got guys that want to come here, yes, to win football games, but let's be honest, folks. A lot of these kids, their goal isn't to win a national championship in college football. I hate to tell you that, but that's honest to God truth. And I know this because I know a lot of these kids. Yeah. Their goal is to get to the NFL and make a lot of freaking money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's where can I go that will set me up to reach my biggest dream.
Yep.
And if you win a national championship in the process, that's great, right? Because you are working towards that when you're at the school and you're on the team, right? But I would love to ask some players, and I would love to ask them, if you were put in this predicament, what would you choose? You win 2 national championships in college, but you only play 1 year in the NFL. Or you win, you don't even get to the playoffs in college, but you play 10 years in the NFL.
Oh.
What do you think they would choose?
The latter.
Exactly.
The latter all day. 100% of them would say that.
Oh, absolutely. And because they're thinking about their family, they're thinking about legacy, they're thinking about they're like,
If you get someone that says the former that goes with the first part you said, it's someone that maybe already has money or has a situation that's fine, and if they make it to NFL, cool. If not, I want to get a good education and good experience. But majority of college football players are trying to get paid, go that next level, and they want to be, somewhere that helps them develop that. And it's usually the winning cultures, that help. But listen, there are a lot of. I mean, you got to think about a lot of these guys in the like Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, I don't even know how good his college team. You know what I'm saying? But there are a lot of good players at some of these other schools that don't, do well, and these guys perform well, get a lot of reps. Yeah. And local kid, I just drew a blank. Luke Kieckley. God, how could I draw a blank? His family lives next door to me. Right. Luke Kieckley goes to Boston College, plays in the NFL. It's a great career. He went to Boston College. They weren't good. They weren't great. They weren't winning anything. But, I think this is going to be one of the big moments for Bearcat, football. Yeah. Sauce Gardner, he was college good. I think he's NFL great. I think he's the perfect guy for the NFL. He's got the swag. Right. He's got the athleticism, the speed. He understands the IQ portion.
Yeah. And he's really going to set the pace, or not set the pace, but really help with the recruiting for the Bearcats.
Absolutely.
Who's
the next Sauce
Who's
Gardner?
the next Sauce?
Who's the next Sauce?
Who's the next Sauce?
Who's the next Des Ridder? Right?
Yeah.
Alec Pierce. That kid. Yeah. I'm going to say something about Alec Pierce. Got to know his dad a little bit. Know his family. Just successful in whatever they do. Alec Pierce is one of those young men that you could drop him anywhere in the world. He's going to figure it out. And he's going to be successful.
Right.
There are not a lot of people like that You drop him off anywhere, and he's got that triple threat, man. He's smart, got the athleticism, got the work ethic. You know what I mean? All he needs is that opportunity.
See, and what just came to my mind is we were talking about how would you rather win the national championship or go to the but it really goes hand in hand because like we were saying, when you're winning, you're in more of the spotlight. And now you have a little bit more opportunity to showcase what you have. And fair. You want your program to win because you know what it can do for future Bearcats or whoever's coming in your program, whatever. But, and so them winning, it really, like people say, put them on the map.
Yep.
And so recruits are like, oh, okay, I can win. You see what I'm saying?
And get to the league.
Yep. Oh, wait a minute. They're going to that conference now?
A bit, yep.
It's like a bunch of stuff that's happening, you know what I mean, with the draft and the new conference and they're in the playoffs. Good things coming for Bearcat football for sure.
Yeah, Bearcat athletics with the move to the Big 12, man. Yeah. It's that's huge on a lot of different fronts.
Major.
That's going to be a different podcast discussion. But hey, I want to end on this. So we're getting pretty close to my birthday.
Very good.
May 12th. And so last birthday, I turned 45 last May. And I've got a circle of friends. We all kind of made a commitment that when we turn 45, we're going to learn an instrument.
Good.
And I have no musical background, so I've been playing, learning the piano. I have a piano teacher. Shout out to Matthew, who's actually in the UK right now auditioning for I don't know. He's auditioning for something like
America's Got Talent.
No. It's like some big time thing. He's like, I'm not going to get it.
Right.
But the fact that I have the ability to audition it would be like if I had the opportunity to go to the NBA the NBA combine. I'm not going to make the league.
Right.
But I could say I worked out. And,
right.
I was there. So I think that was the same experience for him. But anyway, so I have a teacher. I go once a week. I've been doing it 6 months. I'm at the 6-month mark. And I said after a year that I was going to be able to play the piano. I could sit down anywhere and play the piano. And so I'm 6 months in. I got piano class tomorrow. So
do you feel like you're on pace?
No. So the toughest thing has been so for those listening that play an instrument, I wish Cruzy was here because he learned the guitar, kind of self-taught. I think he has a teacher, but initially maybe
I think he has a teacher now.
He has a teacher now, but he was initially self-taught, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's just fascinating because when you're older, you get into a mode where you're telling people what to do, or you're kind of already set in your way. When I say you're telling people what to do, some people are a coach or they have children,
right?
And you're telling your kid, do this,
you're
do that.
Used to being a teacher.
Correct.
Not a student.
Absolutely. So being 45, now being a student, basically learning how. So I took it back. I said, what was it like when I first tried to learn how to do a layup? Like how difficult that was. And I remember when I was young, I thought I was never going to learn how to do a layup. Like I was like, I should stop. I'm never going to be able to do this. Of course you eventually learn, but I felt like that playing the piano. I said, I'm never going to be able to figure it. I mean, just felt like the mount was just too high to climb.
Right.
And reading music was a challenge, and I started to figure things out. And you kind of figure it out in your own little way. You find little tricks to, help your brain figure it out. Making my fingers move, like the whole left side. The last 3 fingers on my left hand are just like disabled. Like I'm like, do these things work? But then I have these small little breakthroughs. It's almost like, and I'm not a golfer. I don't play golf, but I've always been told that, you could have a bad shot, and you have one really good shot. It just keeps you going, right? It's like, oh, I got to keep playing this. Yeah. This is what people tell me. And I felt like that. several times at piano class where I was working on a Beethoven song and I kind of hit this thing and I was like, ooh, that's it.
That's it.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not where I want to be at the 6-month mark.
Mm-hmm.
But I gotta kind of pick it up to get to that. I would say Christmas in December 2022 was when I'd be able to sit down and play for my nephews and my niece and the family. And so working on it. So I'm saying that to say my 46th birthday will be May 12th. And I have another challenge coming. Ready for this?
I'm ready.
My next challenge while I'm learning the piano is to become fluent in Spanish.
Ooh, see.
I wish people could have saw your face when you said, see. Because listen, I feel like, you look at the United States of America, I mean, the population and the culture here, and there's so many Spanish-speaking folks in not only greater Cincinnati, but I go to Florida, I go to Los Angeles a lot. Everywhere I go, I mean, I've been in Los Angeles, and people have come up to me and started speaking Spanish, and I'm like, bruh, nope.
No P.O.
Nope. And I'm like, how cool would it be, though, if, like, I'm able to go around and just, hey, I can talk. And two, you look at, I think you're exercising your mind more. You're learning new things because, listen, at the end of the day, your body, as you get older, your body starts to break down. It's harder to pick up new sports and different things like that. Because I'm not saying my body's breaking down, but I think sometimes our next challenge is going to be athletic, where I want my next continue to make these challenges, kind of exercise my mind a little bit more. Yeah. So piano now, Spanish after this birthday. And then, we were talking about this before, my 50th birthday, I am going plant-based. Plant-based rest of my life, eating. Wow. So I'm slowly working towards that. I'm not going to just May 12th be like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and eat this tree real quick, this bush. It's just true. Oh, that came across wrong. This let me ask you this question. Okay. So how old are you?
I am 27.
27. When's your birthday?
February 13th.
So next February, can we get you to do something where you pick a new thing to learn?
Oh. I didn't know what you were about to say.
I want you to. I want you to go plant-based.
Yes, I thought you was going to say that.
Because before we got here, you were eating a whole Chick-fil-A, like 5-course. You had like
amazing
fries and
amazing.
So, no, but I'd like to see my friends challenge themselves and try different things and don't get in a space where you're just kind of, I'm cool, man. I don't need to learn anything else.
Yeah, I will commit to that.
Okay.
Yep.
You don't have to tell us what that's going to be.
I'm going to think on it. That's good. I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
Is that fair?
Yes. I think I'm going to start doing it every year. Like, you say you do that every year, or you do it like?
Yeah. So when I turn 45, so the piano was first, Spanish, and then, I haven't thought about what, 48 will be, but then obviously 50 will be to go plant-based. Okay. That's not really stretching my mind, but it's a change in lifestyle. It is, for sure.
It's definitely a mental battle, though.
Oh, no question.
Yeah.
No question about it. But I just think, continue to learn and.
Because it's easy. The reason why that's a good challenge, in general, like to challenge yourself to do something different, is it's so easy to get caught up in a normal type routine and just in the flow of things, right? That you forget to challenge yourself outside of your comfort zone,
right?
So I like that. That's good.
And it's fun. So when I go to piano class, it's just the teacher and I pull up. We go every Wednesday. And during the week, I need to practice, and I usually come in with a song, and I will have practiced the song, and I've got to play it for him. And man, boy, there's some days I'm nervous. I'm like, whoa, boy, I'm gonna mess this song all up, or it's like being back playing basketball. You're about to play a game, or you're going to practice with Coach Huggins. Boy, that was nerve-wracking. I'm gonna tell you that. So I've enjoyed that. Like I think I've got 2 songs. One song I've been working on, a new song I just started working on to do tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes. We will see. So think about that. So that $43 billion, and when you turn 28 next February.
And the name of my NBA team.
The name of your NBA, yes, the name of your NBA team.
Yes.
And who your first draft pick's going to be.
Yeah.
For that.
Oh,
Why don't you start Tyler McGinnis?
Yeah.
Tyler would be your first draft pick. Because you will be the GM. You will be the GM of the team.
I would be the coach.
Owner.
I would be the owner.
Oh, you're going to wear
and
all
I would be the starting point guard.
What $43 billion will do for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
This segment is sponsored by the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Cincinnati. They have a new flexible bachelor's degree that will allow you to graduate conveniently and affordably, and you won't lose any credit or have to start over. And I want to give a shout out to Healthcare Management Group for their continued support of the podcast. In season 3, we're going to have a few more sponsors jump aboard, and I'm excited about that. But we'll get to that, and we'll make that announcement very soon. Stu, I appreciate you coming on as normal.
Appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll continue this next episode. And once again, you can follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Alex_Meacham. Meacham spelled Meacham. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, Alex Meacham. Snapchat, one of Stu's favorite apps. Snapchat at BigMeach41. I'm on TikTok.
Very good.
Wait a minute. No,
Yeah.
Snapchat's not your favorite.
TikTok.
TikTok's your...
Oh, yeah, TikTok.
TikTok's your app. So Snapchat, which is one of the most popular amongst the young people.
Oh, yeah. Very popular.
Very popular.
It's like they don't even text.
No.
They snap.
Oh.
They don't text.
So currently right now, so the course of the year, Shining Star, we will have over 30 teams, so over 312 kids in our program. And I guarantee you, anytime I need to send any kid a message, of those 312, it's through Snapchat.
Yeah, that's how you reach them.
Oh, yeah. I text a kid by accident. No joke. I text a kid by accident today to ask him a question, and never got back. Never got back to me. Snapchatted. He answered my question right away.
See?
Today. I got proof of it.
Trust me, I've experienced it myself. I've learned. I've learned the hard way myself. Like if you...
I learned the hard way myself. Amazing.
Yeah.
Social media has changed our world.
It has.
And I'm on TikTok.
Very good.
And I need to be a little bit more active on TikTok.
Me too.
Yeah, you were on me about being active on TikTok, but yet you were
Consistency is key on TikTok. It's like a flow. It's like momentum, and once you break that momentum, you got to get back.
No question. 100%. At Alex Meacham 41 is my TikTok, so you can hit me up there. And I want to once again thank everybody for listening to another episode of the Bearcat Basketball Podcast. Go Bearcats!
Good.
Yes.
Muy bien.